How does a man stay silent after being told he's helped more than enough, only to end a wedding with one calm speech that changes everything? Why did I wait until the toast, instead of confronting anyone when my safe was emptied the day before the ceremony? And how did a room full of smiling guests become witnesses to something they were never prepared for? While you're here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the hype button, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? I'm Drew Corven, 58 years old. I've spent 34 years working at Bridgeport Steel, melting down scrap metal and pouring it into molds that become something useful. My hands are scarred from heat and rough edges. My back aches most mornings. The kind of ache that settles deep into your bones and never really leaves. But I've never missed a shift, never asked for favors, and never walked away from responsibility. My daughter Aria is 27. She's getting married in 3 days. I raised her alone after her mother left when Aria was 9. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Coming home from work, still covered in soot and sweat, finding a note on the kitchen table. 10 sentences. That's all it took for her to explain why she was leaving, why she couldn't do this anymore, why Aria and I would be better off without her. And I didn't cry, I didn't rage. I just folded the note, put it in a drawer, and went to check on Aria. She was in her room, doing homework, completely unaware that her world had just changed forever. I never showed her that note, never told her the things her mother wrote. I just said Mom had to go away for a while. And then that while became permanent. I worked double shifts to keep the house, to pay for her school, to make sure she had what she needed. There were nights I came home so exhausted I could barely stand. Nights when I'd fall asleep in my work clothes, too tired to shower. Mornings when I'd wake up at 4 a.m. to make Aria breakfast before heading back to the plant. I didn't complain. That's what fathers do. 3 weeks ago, I walked into Marquette Jewelers on 5th Street. The store smelled like leather and glass cleaner, that particular scent of expensive things carefully maintained. Display cases gleamed under soft lights, each one containing rings and necklaces that cost more than I made in a month. Maybe 2 months. A young woman in a black suit stood behind the counter, arranging rings on velvet trays. Her name tag said, Michelle. She looked up when the door chimed. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her smile was professional, practiced. "I'm looking for my daughter," I said. "Aria Corven. She's here picking out wedding bands." The woman's smile shifted slightly. Something in her eyes changed. Recognition, maybe, or pity. "They're in the private consultation room," she said, pointing toward the back. I walked past rows of diamond earrings and necklaces, past display cases showing watches I'd never be able to afford. The consultation room had glass walls, probably so the staff could keep an eye on the merchandise. Through the glass, I saw Aria sitting beside Finn Harlow, her fiancé. Finn's mother, Mara, sat across from them, her posture perfect, her expression sharp and evaluating. I opened the door. The hinges were silent, well-oiled. Everything in this place was maintained to perfection. Aria looked up. For a moment, I saw surprise in her eyes. Then something else. Discomfort, maybe. "Dad? What are you doing here?" Not "Hi, Dad," or "Good to see you." Just a question that sounded more like an accusation. "I wanted to talk about the wedding," I said, standing in the doorway. "I know things are getting expensive. I'd like to help with some of the costs." Finn smiled. Not the warm kind. Not the kind you give to family, the kind you give to someone who's interrupting something important, the kind that says he's already decided how this conversation will go and it won't take long. "Drew," he said, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. Maybe he did, in a way. His family had money. Real money. The kind that made a place like this feel comfortable instead of intimidating. "That's really generous, but we've got it covered." Mara nodded, her diamond earrings catching the light. "Finn's father and I have always planned to cover our son's wedding. It's tradition in our family." The way she said "our family" made it clear I wasn't part of that category. Aria glanced at Finn, then back at me. I saw something in her face, a decision being made, a choice about whose side to take. "Dad, you've already helped more than enough." The words hit me like cold water. Not a slap, not a punch. Just cold water poured slowly over my head, running down my neck, soaking into my shirt. I stood there, holding my work jacket in one hand. Around us, the jewelry store hummed with soft music and quiet voices from other parts of the building. The sales clerk, Michelle, was now standing near the door, pretending to organize a display, but clearly listening. "I just thought," I started. "We appreciate it," Aria said quickly, cutting me off. Her voice had that tone, the one she used when she was done with a conversation, when she'd made up her mind and didn't want to discuss it further. "But really, we're fine." Finn reached over and patted my shoulder. Twice. firm, like calming a dog that was getting too excited. "Don't worry, Drew," he said. His voice was smooth, confident. "We've got this under control." I looked at my daughter. Her face was polite but distant. She wasn't angry. She wasn't emotional. She was just done with me being there, done with me existing in this moment that belonged to her and Finn and his family. The consultant who'd been helping them, an older man in an expensive suit, cleared his throat softly. A gentle reminder that I was taking up time, that I was in the way. I nodded. "All right." My voice came out steady, calm. I've always been good at that, keeping my voice steady when everything inside is breaking. I turned and walked out. The sales clerk, Michelle, avoided my eyes as I passed. The door chimed softly behind me, a pleasant sound that felt wrong somehow. Outside, the afternoon sun was too bright. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, letting the heat settle on my skin. People walked past me, a young couple holding hands, a woman on her phone, a businessman checking his watch. Cars rolled by. Everything kept moving like nothing had happened, but something had. I drove home in silence. My truck is old, 15 years. The air conditioning only works on the highest setting and makes a rattling noise. The radio's been broken for 2 years. I've been meaning to fix it, but never got around to it. My house is small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that's older than Aria. The paint on the walls is faded, a color that might have been cream once, but now looks more like old paper. The furniture is secondhand, bought from estate sales and thrift stores over the years. But it's mine. I paid for it. I kept it standing through every storm and every hard month when the bills came and the bank account was close to empty. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. The chair creaked under my weight, the same sound it's made for the past 12 years. Outside the window, the neighborhood was quiet. Mrs. Patterson's dog was barking. It always barks at 3 p.m, like clockwork. I thought about the jewelry store, about Aria's face when she saw me, about the way she'd said, "You've already helped more than enough," about Finn's hand on my shoulder, that patronizing pat that felt like being dismissed. My phone rang around 6 that evening. Aria. "Hey, Dad." "Hey. I just wanted to say thanks for offering to help today. It means a lot." Her voice sounded different on the phone, softer, like she was reading from a script she'd prepared. "You said I'd helped enough." She paused. I could hear her breathing, choosing her words carefully. "I didn't mean it like that. I just meant you've already done so much. You don't need to keep paying for everything. I'm your father." "I know, but Finn and I are adults now. We can handle it." Adults. She said it like it was something new, like she hadn't been an adult for years already. I didn't say anything. I just held the phone, staring at the coffee mug in front of me. It was a plain white mug, no designs, no logos, just ceramic and heat. "Dad, I'm here. Are you upset?" "No." "Okay, I'll talk to you soon." She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand, listening to the house breathe around me, the familiar creaks, the refrigerator's hum, the clock marking seconds. My coffee had gone cold. I drank it anyway. Then I went to my office. It wasn't really an office, just the second bedroom. A desk I'd built from scrap lumber, a filing cabinet from a yard sale, a chair rescued from the plant's break room. That's where I kept everything. Bills, taxes, bank statements, labeled, dated. My father used to say a man who can't track his papers can't track his life. I opened the cabinet and pulled the folder marked Aria Wedding. Inside were receipts and transfer records. For 2 years, I'd been setting money aside. $50 here, $100 there. More when I picked up extra shifts. $15,000. I hadn't told Aria. It was meant to be a surprise. For a honeymoon, a house, whatever came next. Every deposit represented overtime, weekends at the plant, small things I'd gone without. I closed the folder and put it back. Then I took out another one. Older, worn. Savings, emergency. Inside was the documentation for my safe deposit box at First Union Bank. 12 years old, bonds from my father, old coins, cash, $28,000. Not a fortune, but enough to matter. I stared at the paperwork, the access logs, the inventory I'd updated when I revised my will, then returned it to the cabinet and locked it. I sat there in the dim light, thinking about the phrase helped more than enough. The next morning, I went to work. My alarm went off at 4:30, same as always. I got up, made coffee, took a shower. The water pressure is weak. Has been for years. Another thing I've been meaning to fix. Bridgeport Steel sits on the edge of the industrial district, surrounded by warehouses and railroad tracks. The building is massive, all concrete and steel beams, with furnaces that glow orange through the small windows. You can see that glow from miles away at night, like a heartbeat. The air inside always smells like burning metal and sweat. After 34 years, I don't even notice it anymore. It's just how air smells when you're doing real work. I clocked in at 6 a.m. The time clock is old, the kind that stamps your card with a loud mechanical thunk. Some of the younger guys complain about it, say the company should upgrade to digital, but I like it. There's something solid about that thunk. Proof that you showed up. Leon Corven, no relation, just the same last name, was already in the break room, drinking coffee from a dented thermos. He's 62, built like a barrel, and has worked at Bridgeport longer than I have. His hands are even more scarred than mine. He's missing part of his left index finger from an accident 15 years ago. "Morning," he said. "Morning." I poured myself a cup from the communal pot. It was bitter and burned. We make it strong here. Has to last through a 10-hour shift. "How's the wedding planning?" Leon asked. "Fine." He looked at me over his thermos. Leon's good at reading people. Comes from decades of working in loud spaces where you have to communicate without words, where a look or a gesture can mean the difference between a smooth operation and a trip to the emergency room. "That bad, huh?" I sat down across from him. The plastic chair was cracked, held together with duct tape. "Aria told me I'd helped enough." Leon raised an eyebrow. "Helped enough with what?" "Everything, I guess." He took a sip of coffee. "That's what kids do. They grow up, they think they don't need you anymore." "Maybe they don't. They do. They just don't know it yet." The whistle blew. 7 short blasts. Time to start. We worked the furnace line that day. Hot, loud, repetitive. The kind of work that clears your head because it demands every ounce of focus. You can't think about your problems when you're handling molten steel. You think about temperature, about timing, about not making a mistake that could hurt you or the guy next to you. Molten steel doesn't care about your feelings. It just burns. The heat was oppressive. By mid-morning, my shirt was soaked through with sweat. My safety goggles kept fogging up, and I had to stop every few minutes to wipe them clean. During lunch, I sat alone in the break room. My sandwich was dry, turkey and mustard on wheat bread that had been in my lunchbox since 5 in the morning. The bread was too thick, slightly stale. I ate it anyway. I thought about Finn. Finn Harlow is 31. He works in finance, something about investment portfolios and client relations. I've never fully understood what he does. He's tried to explain it a few times, but it always sounds like he's speaking a different language. He wears expensive suits and drives a car that costs more than I make in a year. A sleek black sedan with leather seats and a dashboard that looks like a spaceship. He's charming, confident. The kind of man who always knows the right thing to say. Who can walk into a room and immediately become the center of attention without seeming to try. He started dating Aria 2 years ago. They met at some networking event. Aria works in marketing for a small tech company. She's good at it, smart, organized. She gets that from me, I think. The organization part, anyway. At first, I liked Finn. He was polite. He asked questions about my work. He seemed interested in my stories about the plant, about the steel industry, about the physical reality of making things. But over time, things changed. Little comments, small corrections, the way he'd gently steer conversations away from topics I brought up. The way he'd laugh, just a little, just enough to notice, when I mentioned something from my world. "Steelwork is tough," he'd say. "But it's not exactly the future, you know? Everything's moving digital. Manual labor is being automated." Or, "Aria deserves someone who can give her stability, real stability, not just a paycheck that depends on whether the plant has work that week." He never said I wasn't good enough. He never had to. I finished my sandwich and went back to work. The afternoon shift was harder than the morning. The heat built up in the building as the day went on. By 3 o'clock, it felt like working inside an oven. That evening, I drove to Aria's apartment on the north side of town. New complex, gated entry. A security guard who nodded as I passed. Everything painted in calming beige and gray. Her building had an elevator, carpeted halls, the soft recessed lighting. I remembered how excited she'd been when she moved in. Her first truly nice place. I knocked on Unit 312. Finn answered. Expensive casual clothes, polo shirt, tailored jeans, nothing that suggested physical work. "Drew," he said, smiling. "Come in." The apartment smelled like lavender and new furniture. Aria was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables on a bamboo board. "Hey, Dad." "Hey." Finn closed the door behind me. The deadbolt clicked automatically. "Can I get you something?" he asked. "Water? Beer? We've got a great IPA." "I'm fine." He gestured to the couch. I sat. The cushions swallowed me. I had to adjust to keep from sliding back. Finn took a leather chair across from me, real leather, relaxed, in control. "So," he said, "what brings you by?" I wanted to talk about the wedding. Aria came out, drying her hands. "Dad, we already talked about this." "I know. I just wanted to make sure everything's covered." Finn leaned forward slightly. "I appreciate the concern. My parents are covering the venue and catering. About 60%. Aria and I have the rest handled." "The honeymoon?" I asked. "Already booked," Aria said, sitting on the arm of Finn's chair. Casual, deliberate. "Greece, 2 weeks." "That's expensive," I said. Finn smiled. "It's worth it. Aria deserves the best." The implication sat between us. I nodded. "Okay." "Dad," Aria said gently, "we're adults. We can take care of ourselves." I stood. The couch made me work for it. "I understand." Finn walked me to the door. "You raised a great daughter. You should be proud." We shook hands. His grip was firm, his hand soft and unmarked by labor. I drove home thinking about the look he'd given me. Not anger, not dislike, just dismissal. Like a problem already solved, a chapter already closed. I sat in my driveway for a moment, listening to the engine tick as it cooled. Moths circled the streetlights. Inside, I made dinner. Chicken, rice, green beans. Simple, functional. I overcooked the chicken like always. I ate alone at the table, listening to the quiet. After dinner, I went to my office. I opened the filing cabinet again and pulled out the wedding folder. $15,000. Set aside over 2 years. Meant as a gift. Meant to help her start her new life. I put it back. Then I opened my laptop. It's old. Takes 5 minutes to boot up. The screen has a crack in the corner from when I dropped it 3 years ago. I logged into my bank account and checked my safe deposit box access records. My stomach dropped. The box had been accessed 3 days ago, Thursday, the 14th. Not by me. I scrolled through the details. Authorization code? Secondary key holder. Aria. I'd added her to the account when she turned 21. It was 7 years ago, right after she graduated from college. She'd been so happy that day, so proud. We'd gone to dinner at a nice restaurant. Not fancy, but nice. She'd ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, and I'd told her to go ahead, to celebrate. I added her to the account because I wanted her to have access in case something happened to me, in case I got hurt at work, or sick, or worse. I wanted her to be able to take care of things. I never thought she'd use it without asking. I closed the laptop. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the wall. The paint was yellowed. There was a water stain in the corner from when the roof leaked 2 winters ago. I'd fixed the leak, but never repainted. Then I picked up my phone and dialed. First Union Bank. This is Jennifer speaking. How can I help you? I need to speak to someone about my safe deposit box. Of course. May I have your account number? I gave it to her. And your name? Drew Corven. 1 moment, please. The hold music was classical, something soft and forgettable. It played for 3 minutes before someone else picked up. Mr. Corven, this is Vincent Pierce, branch manager. I understand you have questions about your safe deposit box. Yes, I need to know when it was last accessed. I heard typing. Let me pull that up. Yes, here we are. The box was last accessed on Thursday the 14th at 2:47 p.m. By who? Aria Corven. She's listed as a secondary key holder on the account. She provided proper identification and her key. Everything was in order. Did she take anything? More typing. Mr. Corven, we don't monitor the contents of safe deposit boxes. That's between you and the other key holders, for privacy reasons. Can you tell me how long she was in the vault? Approximately 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Enough time to empty the box, to take everything. Is there a problem? Vincent asked. His voice was careful. Professional. If you believe there's been unauthorized access, she's authorized, I said. I just didn't know she'd been there. I understand. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No. Thank you for banking with First Union, Mr. Corven. He hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand. 2:47 p.m. on Thursday. I'd been at work, on the furnace line, sweating through my shirt, while Aria was at the bank, taking money from the box I'd kept safe for 12 years. The bank manager's name was Vincent Pierce, thin, bald, glasses that magnified his eyes enough to make prolonged eye contact uncomfortable. We sat in a small office with frosted glass walls and motivational posters about financial planning. One showed a climber at a summit. Your goals are within reach. Mr. Corven, he said, folding his hands on his spotless desk, I've reviewed the records. You're correct. The box was accessed on the 14th. By my daughter. Yes, Aria Corven. She's listed as a secondary key holder. Proper ID, her key. Everything was procedurally correct. Did she take anything? Vincent adjusted his glasses. We don't monitor the contents of safe deposit boxes. That's private. We record access, not activity. But you know she was in there for 20 minutes. Yes. Sign in at 2:43. Exit at 3:07. 24 minutes total. 4 to walk in and out. 20 alone. Was she alone? He checked the screen. Escorted by security to the vault. She entered alone. Did she bring a bag? A large purse, according to the log. Large enough. She's authorized, I said. I gave her access 7 years ago. Then legally there's no issue. I understand. He studied me for a moment. If you want to change access permissions, that's a simple form. Not yet. He nodded, relieved. We shook hands. His palm was soft and damp. Outside, the sun was too bright. I sat in my truck, visor down, thinking about Aria walking into the vault. Opening the box? Did she hesitate, or did she feel entitled? I drove to a storage facility on the south end of town. You store it. Identical orange buildings behind chain-link fencing. I'd rented a unit there 12 years ago, shortly after opening the safe deposit box. Unit 247, 5th building, 2nd floor. The door rattled open. Inside smelled of dust and cardboard, old tools, paperwork, decorations, and in the back corner, a small gray lockbox, fireproof, supposedly. I set it on a bin and spun the combination. My birthday. Inside were copies. Everything important. Birth certificates, deeds, insurance policies, wills, and the inventory. 3 pages, notarized 6 months ago. Every bond, every coin, every bill, listed and itemized, $28,000. I locked the box, closed the unit, and sat in my truck reading the inventory again. Claudia Renz's notary seal stamped at the bottom of each page. I'd call her, just not yet. At home, the house felt colder than it should have. I turned on the heat anyway. The furnace groaned to life. I made coffee. The machine sputtered, filling the kitchen with the smell of burnt grounds. I hadn't cleaned it in a while. Too many things had been running on trust. I sat at the table and stared at the inventory sheet. $28,000. I thought about what that money represented. Years of work, overtime shifts, bonuses saved instead of spent, tax returns deposited straight into savings. I thought about my father. He'd worked at the same steel plant for 40 years. He'd taught me everything I knew about the work, about showing up on time, about doing the job right, about saving for emergencies because you never knew when the plant would have layoffs or when an injury might keep you home. He'd left me those bonds, 10 of them, each worth $1,000 when they matured. Don't touch these unless you absolutely have to, he'd said. They're insurance. I'd kept them safe for 12 years. And now they were gone. I picked up my phone and dialed. Renz Legal Services. This is Amanda speaking. I need to speak to Claudia Renz. May I ask who's calling? Drew Corven. There was a pause, the sound of typing. One moment, please, Mr. Corven. The hold music was better than the banks. Jazz, something with a saxophone. Then, Drew? Claudia's voice was sharp and clear, familiar. It's been a long time. I know. What can I do for you? I need a consultation, quietly. Another pause, longer this time. When? Tomorrow. Is that possible? I have an opening at 4. Does that work? Yes. Come to my office, and Drew, bring any documentation you think is relevant. I will. See you tomorrow. She hung up. I stared at the phone for a moment. Then I put it down and looked around my kitchen. The linoleum floor was cracked in places. The cabinets were the original ones from when the house was built in 1978. The refrigerator hummed loudly, a sound I'd stopped noticing years ago until moments like this when everything was quiet. This was my life, this kitchen, this house, this simple existence. And it had been enough for me. But apparently not for Aria. I spent the evening organizing documents, the inventory sheet, bank statements showing my deposits over the years, receipts for the bonds when my father first bought them, everything neat and orderly in a manila folder. I didn't call Aria, I didn't text her, I just worked. At some point, I realized I hadn't eaten dinner. I made a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, ate it standing at the counter. Then I went to bed. I didn't sleep well. I kept waking up, checking the clock. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 5:30. At 6, I gave up and got out of bed. Made coffee, sat at the kitchen table in the dark, waiting for sunrise. The next morning, I went to work like normal. Leon was in the break room reading a newspaper, an actual paper newspaper. He's one of the last people I know who still gets one delivered. "You look tired," he said without looking up from the sports section. "Didn't sleep well." He glanced at me over the paper. "Wedding stress?" "Something like that." "You want to talk about it?" "Not yet." He nodded and went back to his paper. That's what I appreciated about Leon. He knew when to push and when to leave things alone. We worked the furnace line again. The routine was comforting in its predictability. Clock in, suit up, check the equipment, fire up the furnace. Pour the metal, let it cool, repeat, physical work, real work. Work that didn't involve questions about feelings or complicated family dynamics. At lunch, I sat outside on the loading dock. The air was cooler there, a breeze coming off the river a mile away. I ate a sandwich I'd packed that morning, turkey and mustard. The bread was stale, but I didn't care. My phone buzzed, a text from Aria. "Can you come to the rehearsal dinner tomorrow night? It's at Lavender Hall, 7 p.m. Finn's parents are hosting. Let me know." The exclamation point felt forced, like she was trying too hard to sound cheerful. I typed back, "I'll be there." She sent a thumbs-up emoji and a heart. I put the phone away and finished my sandwich. That afternoon, I left work early. I told my supervisor I had a doctor's appointment. He didn't ask questions. I'd worked there long enough that I'd earned some trust, some flexibility. Claudia's office was in a brick building downtown, sandwiched between a coffee shop and a tax preparation service. The lobby smelled like furniture polish and old paper. The elevator was small and slow, groaning as it climbed to the 3rd floor. I found her name on a brass plaque beside a heavy wooden door. Claudia Renz, attorney at law. I knocked. "Come in." The office was exactly as I remembered from 6 years ago when she'd helped me update my will. Dark wood furniture, bookshelves lined with legal texts, their spines worn and cracked. A large window overlooking the street, the glass old and slightly wavy. Claudia sat behind her desk. She looked older, more gray in her hair, fine lines around her eyes, but her gaze was still sharp, still assessing. She wore a gray suit and thin-framed glasses. "Drew," she said, standing. "Sit down." I sat in one of the leather chairs facing her desk. The leather was cracked, comfortable in an old-fashioned way. She studied me for a moment. "You look like you haven't slept." "I haven't. Not well." "Tell me what's going on." So I told her. Everything. The jewelry store, the apartment, the bank, the safe deposit box, the inventory, the wedding, Finn and Mara, and the way they'd looked at me like I was irrelevant. She listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and leaned back in her chair. "Do you have proof?" she asked. I pulled the inventory sheet from my jacket and handed it to her. She scanned it, her eyes moving quickly down the pages. "This is notarized. 6 months ago. You did it. I remember." She looked up. "And you haven't accessed the box since?" "No." "But Aria has." "Yes. 3 days ago." Claudia set the papers down. "Drew, you understand this is complicated. She's your daughter. She had legal access. You gave her that access 7 years ago." "I know." "But you didn't give her permission to take anything." "No." She tapped her pen on the desk. "What do you want to do? What's your goal here?" I met her eyes. "I want to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For whatever comes next." She studied me. Her expression was neutral, professional. But I could see her thinking, processing. "You're not planning to confront her before the wedding?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I need to see what happens first. I need to see if she says anything, if she admits it, if she shows any sign that she feels guilty." Claudia nodded slowly. "You're positioning yourself." "Yes." "That's smart. But Drew, what's the end game here? What do you actually want to happen?" I thought about it. I'd been thinking about it for days, but hadn't put it into words yet. "I want her to understand that actions have consequences," I said finally. "I want her to know that you can't just take from people who've given you everything. That respect matters. That honesty matters. And if she doesn't understand, if she doesn't care, then I want to make sure she can never do it again." Claudia picked up her pen and pulled the legal pad closer. "All right, then here's what we're going to do. Tell me everything you know about Finn Harlow. His finances, his family, his connection to Aria, everything. I told her what I knew, which wasn't much. Finn worked at Hamilton Financial Group, some kind of investment advisor. His father, Gregory, owned a consulting firm. His mother, Mara, didn't work but sat on the boards of various charities. They lived in Westbrook Hills, the expensive part of town. Big houses, manicured lawns, country club memberships. Claudia took notes. When I finished, she looked up. "You think Finn's involved in this, in the missing money?" "I know he is." "Can you prove it?" "Not yet. Oh, but I will." She set the pen down. "Drew, if you're going to do this, you need to be careful. You're talking about accusing your daughter and her fiancé of taking $28,000 from you. That's not something you walk back from. That's not something you apologize for later." "I understand." "Do you? Because this could destroy your relationship with Aria permanently, no matter what happens after, no matter if she apologizes or tries to make it right. This could be the end." I looked at her steadily. "It's already the end." She ended it when she walked into that bank and emptied my box. Claudia watched me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right. I'll start drafting documents. Power of attorney revocation, updated will, trust modifications, anything that limits future access to your assets. How long will that take?" "A week, maybe less if I push. The wedding is in 2 days." She paused. "Then we'll have everything ready by Saturday morning. But Drew, if you execute these documents before the wedding, it sends a message. You need to be absolutely sure." "I'm sure." She stood and extended her hand. "I'll call you Friday evening. We can meet Saturday morning before the ceremony if needed." I shook her hand and left. Outside, the sun was setting. The street was busy with people heading home from work. I stood on the sidewalk, watching them pass. Everyone in their own world, their own problems. None of them knew what I was planning. None of them could see the storm building. I got in my truck and drove to the rehearsal dinner. Lavender Hall was on the east side of town, near the nice neighborhoods. It was a renovated barn with white walls, exposed wooden beams, and string lights hanging from the ceiling. The kind of place that looked rustic but cost a fortune to rent. The parking lot was already full. BMWs, Mercedes, Lexus SUVs. My truck looked out of place. I parked at the far end and walked toward the entrance. Through the windows, I could see people inside, laughing, drinking, dressed in clothes that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I took a breath and went inside. The room was crowded. Round tables covered with white tablecloths, chairs wrapped in cream fabric with bows on the back, a bar in the corner with a young man in a vest pouring wine. Everything coordinated, everything perfect. I saw Aria near the front. She was wearing a blue dress that looked expensive, simple but elegant. Her hair was up. She was laughing at something Finn said, her hand on his arm. Mara stood beside them, holding a glass of champagne. She saw me first. Her smile didn't change, but her eyes did. A flash of something. Recognition, assessment, dismissal. I walked over. "Dad," Aria said, turning. Her smile was bright. Too bright. "You made it." I said I would. She hugged me. It was brief. Her arms barely made contact before she pulled back. A courtesy hug. Finn extended his hand. "Good to see you, Drew." I shook it. His grip was firm, confident. The grip of someone who knew he'd already won. "Finn," Mara nodded at me. "Drew, so glad you could join us." "Thank you for hosting?" She smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course. Family is everything, isn't it?" The way she said family made it clear I was barely part of that equation. A waiter approached with a tray of drinks, wine, champagne, cocktails with names I didn't recognize. "Can I get you something?" the waiter asked. "Water." Aria's smile faltered slightly. "Dad, they have wine. Or beer. Water's fine." The waiter nodded and left. "Let me introduce you to some people," Finn said. He guided me toward a group near the bar. His hand was on my shoulder, that same patronizing touch from the jewelry store. "This is my father, Gregory, and these are some colleagues from the firm." Gregory Harlow was tall, gray-haired, and wore a suit that probably cost more than my truck. He shook my hand firmly. Too firmly. The handshake of someone establishing dominance. "Drew," he said. His voice was deep, practiced. "Finn's told me a lot about you." "Good things, I hope." He laughed, a polished, rehearsed sound. "Of course. Steel work. That's real labor, physical labor, very admirable. It pays the bills." "I'm sure it does." He took a sip of his scotch. "Different world from finance, though. We push paper, you push metal." The colleagues laughed. Not because it was funny, because Gregory had said it. Someone has to make the things, I said. True, true. Gregory clapped me on the shoulder. Well, glad you could make it. Aria's a wonderful girl. You raised her well. Past tense, raised, like my job was done. The conversation moved on. Finn talked about the wedding. Gregory talked about his golf game. Someone mentioned a vacation to the Bahamas. I stood there holding my water, nodding when appropriate. At some point, Mara clinked a spoon against her glass. The room quieted. Thank you all for being here, she said. Her voice carried easily. She was used to being heard. Tomorrow is a big day. Finn and Aria are starting a new chapter, and we're so grateful to share it with all of you. Applause, polite, rhythmic. She continued. I want to thank everyone who helped make this possible. The planners, the venue staff, and of course our family. Gregory and I are so proud to welcome Aria into our family officially. Her eyes swept the room. They landed on me for half a second, then moved on. To Finn and Aria, she said, raising her glass. To Finn and Aria, the room echoed. I sipped my water. Dinner was served. Roasted chicken with a sauce I couldn't identify. Mashed potatoes that were somehow both fluffy and rich. Steamed vegetables with herbs. I sat at a table near the back with Leon, who'd been invited because he'd known Aria since she was a kid. He looked as uncomfortable as I felt in his stiff suit. Nice place, Leon said, cutting into his chicken. Yeah. You okay? Fine. He looked at me, really looked. You're not fine. I didn't answer. I just ate my chicken. It was good. Too good. The kind of good that made my simple home cooking seem inadequate. After dinner, Finn stood and gave a speech. He thanked his parents. He thanked the guests. He talked about meeting Aria at that networking event 2 years ago. How he'd been struck by her intelligence, her ambition, her smile. I knew right away, he said, looking at her. I knew she was the one. Aria wiped her eyes. Happy tears. Finn talked about the future, about building a life together, about dreams and goals and everything they'd accomplish. He didn't mention me, not once. When he finished, everyone applauded. Aria stood and kissed him. Cameras flashed, phones were raised. I left early. I didn't say goodbye. I just stood up, walked out, and drove home. At home, I sat in my office. The house was silent. I opened my laptop and stared at the blank screen for a while. Then I opened my email and typed a message to Claudia. I'm ready. Whatever you need me to sign, I'll sign it. Saturday morning, before the wedding. I hit send and closed the laptop. Then I went to bed and lay there in the dark, thinking about tomorrow. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across the plaster as car headlights swept past outside. The house settled around me with creaks and groans, sounds I'd heard 10,000 times, but tonight they felt different, louder, more present. I thought about the inventory sheet, the bank records, the access log showing 2:47 p.m. on the 14th. I thought about Aria standing in the jewelry store, telling me I'd helped enough. I thought about Finn's hand on my shoulder, that patronizing pat that said I was dismissed, that I was no longer necessary. At 3 a.m, I gave up trying to sleep. I got dressed in the dark, not bothering with lights. Jeans, a flannel shirt, work boots, the clothes I was comfortable in. I went to my office and turned on the small desk lamp. The filing cabinet stood against the wall, its green paint chipped and faded. I'd bought it 20 years ago from an office supply store that was going out of business. $50. It had served me well. I opened it and pulled out every folder related to Aria, every receipt, every bank statement, every piece of documentation showing money I'd set aside or spent on her over the years. I spread them across the desk. College tuition at State University, $42,000. I'd taken out loans for some of it. I'd only finished paying them off 2 years ago. Car down payment when she graduated, $8,000. A used Honda Civic, reliable, safe. Apartment security deposit when she moved out, $3,000. First and last month's rent. Medical bills from when she broke her arm playing soccer in high school, $6,000. Insurance only covered part of it. Books, clothes, school supplies, a laptop for college, plane tickets to visit her mother's family once, even though her mother had abandoned us. Miscellaneous support over the years, too much to calculate exactly. But easily another $20,000, probably more, $107,000. Give or take. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because she's my daughter. Because that's what parents do. You sacrifice. You go without. You make sure your child has what they need, even when it means you can't have what you want. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being appreciated. It started being expected. And then it became something to be dismissed. You've already helped more than enough. I put the folders back and locked the cabinet. Then I went to the kitchen and made coffee. It was 4 a.m. The sky was still dark. I sat at the table, drinking burnt coffee, watching dawn slowly break over the neighborhood through the window. The streetlights clicked off at 5:30. An automatic timer, the same time every morning. My phone buzzed at 6. A text from Claudia. Documents are ready. Meet me at my office at 9 a.m. We'll go through everything before the wedding. I texted back, I'll be there. I showered and put on the suit I'd bought for the wedding. Dark gray, off the rack from a department store. It fit well enough, but I felt stiff in it, constrained. I was used to work clothes, durable clothes, not this. I ate breakfast standing at the counter. Toast with butter, black coffee. My stomach felt tight. At 8:30, I drove downtown. Saturday morning traffic was light. The coffee shop next to Claudia's building was busy. People lined up for their expensive lattes and pastries. I'd never understood spending $5 on coffee. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Claudia's door was already unlocked. Come in, she called before I could knock. She was at her desk, surrounded by papers. She'd been here for a while, probably since 7. Her gray hair was pulled back. She wore reading glasses that she took off when I entered. Drew, sit. I sat. She pushed a stack of documents across the desk. Everything's here. Power of attorney revocation, updated will, trust modifications. If you sign these today, Aria will no longer have access to any of your accounts or assets. What about the safe deposit box? She'll be removed as a key holder immediately. I've already contacted the bank. They'll process the change on Monday, but the documents make it effective as of today. I picked up the first document. Dense legal language, clauses within clauses. I'd never been good at reading this stuff. It always felt like a different language. Walk me through it, I said. Claudia stood and came around the desk. She sat in the chair beside me and went through each document page by page. The power of attorney revocation was straightforward. It removed Aria's legal authority to act on my behalf in any financial or medical matter. The updated will was more complex. It specified that upon my passing, all assets would be divided among 3 charities: the local food bank, a scholarship fund at the community college, and a veterans organization. Aria was explicitly excluded. This is airtight, Claudia said. She can contest it, but she won't win. The language is clear. The trust modifications were technical. I'd set up a small trust years ago, mostly as a way to protect the house if I ever needed long-term care. The modifications removed Aria as a beneficiary. If I sign these now, I said, when do they take effect? Immediately. The moment you sign. But Drew, you need to understand what this means. This isn't just about money. This is you legally severing your daughter from your life, from your legacy. This is permanent. I looked at the documents spread across the desk. Pages and pages of legal text that boiled down to one simple statement. Aria was no longer my daughter, at least not in any way that mattered legally. What if she returns the money? I asked. What if she admits what she did and pays it back? Claudia shook her head. These documents don't care about that. Once they're signed and filed, they're in effect. If you want to reverse them later, you'd have to go through the whole process again. New documents, new signatures, new filing. But I could reverse them? Technically, yes. But Drew, I'm going to be honest with you. In 25 years of practice, I've never seen someone reverse something like this. Once you burn this bridge, it stays burned. I picked up the pen she'd placed on top of the stack. Drew, she said quietly, are you absolutely sure about this? Because there's no going back. I thought about the jewelry store, about the apartment, about the bank, about $28,000 taken without asking, about being told I'd helped enough. I thought about Finn's hand on my shoulder, about Mara's dismissive look, about Gregory's condescending comments. I thought about sitting alone in my house night after night while Aria built a life that didn't include me except when she needed something. I'm sure, I said. I signed the first document, then the second, then the third. My handwriting was steady. My hand didn't shake. Each signature felt like closing a door. When I finished, Claudia gathered the papers and organized them back into neat stacks. I'll file these Monday morning first thing. They'll be official by the end of the day. What about today? What about the wedding? Today they're effective because you've signed them, but they won't be in the system until Monday. So if something happens, if there's some kind of challenge, we have these originals showing the date and your signature. She placed the documents in a leather folder and put them in her safe. I watched her spin the combination lock. One more thing, she said, turning back to me. What are you going to do at the wedding? What do you mean? Are you going to say anything? Confront her? I thought about it. I'd been thinking about it for days. I don't know yet. Drew, whatever you decide, make sure it's what you want. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. What are the right reasons? She smiled slightly. That's not for me to say. But I'll tell you this. Revenge doesn't feel the way people think it will. It doesn't bring peace. It doesn't fix anything. I'm not doing this for revenge. Then what are you doing it for? Respect, I said. I'm doing it because I deserve to be respected. And if I let this go, if I just smile and pretend everything's fine, then I'm telling Aria that it's okay to treat me this way. That it's okay to take from me and lie to me and dismiss me. Claudia nodded. That's fair. Just remember, once you do this, once you make it public, everyone will have an opinion. Everyone will judge. Some will support you. Some will condemn you. Are you ready for that? I don't care what people think. You say that now, but when it's happening, when your phone is ringing and people are sending messages and everyone's talking about you, it's harder than you think. I stood up. Thank you for everything, Claudia. She stood too and walked me to the door. Good luck, Drew. And whatever happens, don't do anything you'll regret. I won't. I left her office and drove home. It was only 10:30. The wedding wasn't until 2. At home, I changed out of my suit and back into comfortable clothes. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson walked by with her dog. She waved. I waved back. A jogger passed, then a couple pushing a stroller. Normal Saturday morning, for them at least. My phone rang. Aria. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hey, Dad. Hey. Just wanted to make sure you're still coming today. I'll be there. Okay, good. She paused. I'm nervous. That's normal. Yeah, I want everything to be perfect, you know? It will be. Another pause. Longer this time. Dad, I know things have been weird lately, with the wedding planning and everything, but I want you to know I love you, and I'm glad you're going to be there. I closed my eyes. Her voice sounded genuine. But was it? Or was she just saying what she thought she should say? I love you too, I said. The words felt hollow. See you soon. See you soon. She hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand, thinking about that conversation, about her saying she loved me, about her wanting everything to be perfect. Did she feel guilty? Did she know I knew? Or was she just oblivious? I went inside and made lunch. A sandwich, turkey and cheese. I ate half of it and threw the rest away. I wasn't hungry. At 1 o'clock, I got dressed again. The suit felt even more uncomfortable this time. The tie felt like it was choking me. I loosened it slightly. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. 58 years old, gray hair, lines around my eyes, scars on my hands from decades of work. Who was I? Father of the bride. That's what the wedding program would say. That's what people would call me. But what did that mean anymore? I drove to Harmony Gardens at 1:30. The venue was beautiful. Manicured lawns, flower beds. A gazebo overlooking a pond. White chairs arranged in perfect rows facing an arch wrapped in roses. I arrived early. The parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few vendor trucks and the wedding planner's car. I walked around the property. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and flowers. Birds sang from the trees. Everything was perfect, planned, controlled. Exactly what you'd expect from a wedding that cost more than I made in a year. I found a bench near the pond and sat down. The water was still, reflecting the sky. A turtle sunned itself on a log near the far shore. I thought about what Claudia had said. About revenge not feeling the way people think it will. About making sure I was doing this for the right reasons. Was I? I honestly didn't know anymore. Part of me wanted to just let it go. To smile and be the proud father. To give a simple toast about how beautiful Aria looked and how happy I was for her. But another part of me, a deeper part, knew that would be a lie. Knew that if I did that, I'd be betraying myself. I'd be saying that respect doesn't matter, that honesty doesn't matter, that you can treat people however you want as long as you smile while doing it. At 1:45, cars started arriving. First a trickle, then a steady stream, expensive cars, clean cars, people in suits and dresses climbing out, checking their phones, walking toward the seating area. I recognized some of them, Finn's colleagues from the rehearsal dinner, Mara's friends, some distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. Leon arrived at 1:50. He saw me on the bench and walked over. You hiding out here? Just thinking. About what? About what I'm going to do. He sat down beside me. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. He was quiet for a moment. Then, Drew, I've known you for 20 years. I've never seen you this torn up about something. Whatever you decide, make sure it's something you can live with." "What would you do?" He thought about it. "I'd probably let it go, but that's me. I avoid confrontation. You're different. You've always been the type to stand up for yourself, to demand respect. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Neither. It's just who you are." We sat there for a few more minutes. Then Leon stood. "Come on, time to go in." We walked to the seating area. The chairs were filling up. I found my seat in the front row, reserved for family. There was a small card with my name written in elegant calligraphy, Drew Corven, father of the bride. I sat down. The chair was uncomfortable, too small. I shifted, trying to find a position that didn't make my back hurt. At 2:00 exactly, the string quartet started playing. Everyone stood, and there she was, Aria. At the far end of the aisle, she wore a white dress that caught the sunlight, making her seem to glow. Her hair was pulled back in an intricate style that probably took hours. She carried a bouquet of white lilies. She looked beautiful. She started walking, slowly, carefully. Her eyes were forward, focused on Finn, who stood at the arch, smiling. As she passed me, she glanced over. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, and I saw something there. Guilt? Fear? Or was I imagining it? Then she was past me, continuing toward Finn. When she reached the front, the officiant began. The ceremony was short, traditional. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Finn's were polished, eloquent. Aria's were heartfelt, her voice cracking with emotion. They exchanged rings, simple gold bands. The officiant pronounced them married. Finn kissed Aria. Everyone applauded. I clapped too. My hands felt numb, mechanical. After the ceremony, guests moved to the reception hall. It was attached to the main building, a large room with high ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and round tables covered in white linen. A bar stretched along one wall. A DJ was setting up in the corner. I found my seat. Table 1, right near the front, near the head table where Aria and Finn would sit with their parents. Leon sat beside me. "You doing okay?" "Yeah." "You don't look okay." "I'm fine." Dinner was served. Salad with some kind of vinaigrette that was too sweet, steak cooked perfectly medium rare, roasted vegetables with herbs, mashed potatoes that were somehow both rich and light. Everything tasted like nothing. I ate mechanically. Fork to plate, plate to mouth, chew, swallow, repeat. After dinner, the DJ announced the first dance. Aria and Finn walked to the center of the floor. The lights dimmed, a slow song played, something modern that I didn't recognize. They danced. Everyone watched. Cameras flashed. Phones were raised. Then other couples joined, Mara and Gregory, friends and family. The floor filled with swaying bodies. I stayed in my seat. At some point, a waiter refilled my water glass. I hadn't realized it was empty. Then the DJ's voice came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some toasts. First, we'll hear from the mother of the groom, Mara Harlow." Mara stood. She walked to the microphone at the front of the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood. She smiled at the crowd, then at Finn and Aria. "When Finn was born," she began, "I knew he was destined for great things." She talked about his childhood, his accomplishments, his success, how proud she was, how perfect Aria was for him. She raised her glass. "To my son and his beautiful bride, may your future be as bright as your love." Applause. Gregory went next. His speech was shorter, more professional. He talked about legacy, about family, about building something that lasts. More applause. Then Finn stood. He walked to the microphone, confident and relaxed. He thanked everyone for coming. He thanked his parents. He talked about Aria, about how lucky he was, about their future together. He raised his glass. To love, to family, to the future. Everyone drank. Then the DJ looked at a card in his hand. "And now, we'll hear from the father of the bride, Drew Corven." The room went quiet. Every face turned toward me. I stood. The walk to the microphone felt like walking through water. Each step took effort. The room was silent except for the rustle of fabric as people shifted in their seats to watch me. 200 faces, maybe more, all turned in my direction. I reached the microphone. It stood on a stand beside the head table, a black foam windscreen slightly dented on one side. Aria sat 5 feet away. Her expression was expectant, a small smile on her lips. She looked relaxed, happy. Finn leaned back in his chair, one arm draped over Aria's shoulders. He smiled at me. That same confident smile. I cleared my throat. The sound echoed through the speakers. Thank you, I said. My voice came out steady, calm. I'm Drew Corven, Aria's father. A few polite nods from the crowd. I've been thinking about what to say today, about what kind of toast to give. I thought about sharing a story from when Aria was young, or talking about how proud I am, but I realized something. I paused. I realized that some moments aren't about looking back. They're about being honest, about saying what needs to be said. Aria's smile faltered slightly. 3 weeks ago, I went to a jewelry store. I wanted to offer financial help with the wedding. My daughter told me I'd already helped more than enough. Confused glances exchanged across the room. At the time, I didn't understand what that meant, but then I thought about it. I added it up. College tuition, car payments, rent deposits, medical bills, $107,000, give or take. Sharp gasps now, a wave of shock moving through the room. But that wasn't what she meant. She meant I was done being needed, that my role was finished. I pulled the inventory sheet from my pocket. 3 days before this wedding, my safe deposit box at First Union Bank was accessed. Not by me, by my daughter. More gasps. Someone said, "Oh my God." Inside that box were savings bonds my father left me, old coins, and $28,000 in cash. The room erupted, voices rising. I waited to see if anyone would say anything, if anyone would come clean. Instead, the honeymoon to Greece got booked. Wedding payments got made. Everything fell into place. Finn's face had gone red. 6 months ago, I had everything in that box notarized, serial numbers, denominations, everything. So I know exactly what was taken. People pulled out their phones. Recording. Red lights everywhere. This morning, I signed documents revoking all of Aria's access to my accounts. I updated my will. Everything goes to charity when I pass. Aria gets nothing. Aria sobbed. Mascara ran down her face. This isn't about money. It's about respect. It's about a daughter who dismissed her father. About a man who patted me on the shoulder while spending money stolen from me. Finn stood. Sit down. My voice cut through his. He hesitated. Sit down. He sat. I worked 34 years melting steel. Burns on my hands. Aches in my back. I did it because I had a daughter to raise. I never asked for gratitude. But I expected honesty. I looked at Aria. You didn't just take money from me. You took $28,000 without asking. You let Finn smile at me while you emptied my savings. You told me I'd helped enough, then helped yourself to everything I had left. Her face crumpled completely. I turned to Finn. And you. You stood in my daughter's apartment and told me you had everything under control. You shook my hand. The whole time, you knew exactly where that money came from. Finn's hands were fists on the table. I stepped back from the microphone. So here's my toast. I raised my glass of water. To Aria and Finn, may your marriage be built on the same foundation you built this wedding on. May you always remember where your money came from, and may you never forget the man you dismissed. I drank the entire glass. The room was frozen. I set the glass down on the head table. It clicked against the wood. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, chaos erupted. Voices shouting, chairs scraping, Aria's sobs. Mara's sharp voice trying to restore order. I didn't look back. I pushed through the door into the cool evening air. Leon was waiting by my truck. That was something, he said quietly. It needed to be said. He nodded. What now? Now I go home. He reached out and gripped my shoulder, firm, respectful. You did what you had to do? I got in my truck and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw people flooding out of the reception hall. Aria stood in the doorway, her face in her hands. Finn beside her, his phone to his ear, gesturing wildly. Mara surrounded by guests, her perfect composure shattered. I put the truck in drive and pulled away. The wedding was over, and so was everything else.